Awakening to Eternity, The Path to Immortality Through Consciousness, Part 2. I can guarantee that by the end of this video, you will undergo a radical change. You will never see life in the same way again. So let us begin and lay everything out clearly. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you. First, let us start with quantum theory in order to understand scientifically what it teaches us. To explain it very simply, quantum theory shows us that every body, human, animal, or even plant, draws its energy from the source that surrounds it constantly. In simpler words, everything, absolutely everything, is made of the same unique substance, the same unique energy. Within this single substance and out of it, bodies form. Thus, for us human beings, it means our body is of the same nature as everything in the universe. There is no separation, all is one single thing. Perhaps you're wondering, what is that original substance? Well, that substance is mind. Let us now be clear about what the word mind signifies before going any deeper. Mind encompasses everything and concerns the totality of the paradigm you have accepted as your reality. That includes your state of mind, the way you perceive yourself, and the way you perceive reality. In fact, it's quite simply what you are. Returning to human beings, here is how this paradigm works. From the start, humans perceived themselves, through ignorance, as mortal beings, which led the spiritual substance to appear as material. Consequently, this perception gave rise to an apparently mortal body. Because mind shapes both the body and its environment, the fact that humans believe they should walk, be slow, or fear certain things, like fire, caused the body to be programmed to react accordingly. The body integrated this perception and thus created limits. For example, it could be injured by fire or affected by certain dangerous substances. That is why we have always been taught that fire burns, that some foods can be dangerous, and so on. Yet it's important to note that those statements are only half-truths. Why half-truths? Because these statements remain true only as long as the mind inhabiting the body accepts them as such. In reality, it is the mind that decides what the body can or cannot undergo. Once you grasp this, nothing will remain a mystery to you. Take, for instance, a simple onion like the one in your kitchen. You take this onion, leave it alone in a cupboard in the dark. After a few days, you will see several shoots appear, sometimes growing even taller than the onion itself. But now you observe the onion and note that it has neither roots nor light, yet it has produced all this greenery by itself. The onion has literally created matter. And with such a simple experiment, we understand something fundamental. The onion, simply by holding within it the ideal of its completed form, the plant known as Allium cepa, attracts the universal substance to manifest that ideal through it. In other words, the onion harbors the vision of what it is meant to become, and that vision attracts the substance necessary to create its form. It therefore did not need roots or light in order to grow. By holding its ideal in mind, everything was structured according to its will. Thus we see that a mind focuses on an ideal to be achieved, then assimilates the substance needed to manifest that ideal. Mind has no limits, it idealizes, and it simply is. But then what is the ultimate ideal? The ideal of perfection. If mind sets an ideal and everything organizes itself around it to bring it forth, what is the natural ideal of human beings? The answer is simple: God. Just as the onion carries within itself the ideal of becoming Allium cepa, and the caterpillar carries the ideal of becoming a butterfly, humans carry within themselves the ideal of becoming God. That has never been an accident. From the very beginning, it was already inscribed in us. Dr. Alexis Carrel, Nobel Prize winner in medicine, proved it by discovering that humanity's mother cell is Christic, that is, perfect from the start of its creation. It is programmed for eternal life, for continuous regeneration. This God cell exists in each of us. But it is not merely biological, it is also a universal truth. Quantum theory proves it. Everything is one. Humans are mind. As the physicist Erwin Schrödinger once said, the multiplicity of souls is only an appearance. The total is one. This means we are not separate individuals, but expressions of the one, universal mind. The entire universe is contained within us, and the human body is merely an image of it. Man is the image of the creative mind. From the beginning, that divine seed was placed in us, but the only task was to allow it to germinate naturally without blocking it. Like the onion recognizing it as Allium cepa, man needs only to recognize that he is God, letting that ideal manifest through him naturally. God is thus man's natural ideal and has been so always. That is why the word God is universally known. It represents the ultimate degree of perfection of mind, the state toward which everything aspires. In reaching that ideal, we transmute the entire universe to the same level. Since we are the mind and the universe is contained within this mind, everything that exists follows our transmutation. And today that ideal is attained. It is as if the caterpillar has finally succeeded in becoming the butterfly. And a new cycle has started where millions of butterflies come into being. That is exactly what is happening today. The ideal of God has been realized, and thousands of men and women are conscious of this truth and have attained that state of fulfillment. If you too are conscious of it, then don't hesitate to spread this truth by sharing it with those around you or by giving a small thumbs up. Even such a simple gesture can have huge repercussions. So we have arrived at the pivotal moment in this evolution. The ideal is no longer something to be reached. It is here. It is us. We need only recognize it, to let it emerge, and the entire universe is transformed along with us. But now, following the onion example, how does that appear in everyday life? Actually, it's quite simple. As stated previously, the ideal of God is already in man. Then some wonder, why do some people still have mortal bodies? Why does fire still burn me, or why can't I fly? Let's explain concretely. As noted, the human mother cell is by nature divine, already perfect. Yet as explained by Dr. Alexis Carrel, when the mind's paradigm is still full of limiting beliefs, it stops that cell from expressing its full perfection. The mind of old, believing in death and limitations out of ignorance, blocked that cell from fully flourishing. Over time, however, the mind has learned to know itself and to master itself. It's a bit like a musician who starts out playing dissonant notes, but through practice becomes capable of harmony. That is precisely the process that human mind has followed. And now it is merely a matter of affirming our divinity with full consciousness. In everyday life, this divine state of mind resembles love. As Schrödinger said, the multiplicity of souls is only an appearance. Their total is one. This is absolute reality, the perpetual principle of unity that is none other than God, and it manifests in the form of love. Love is the recognition of reality's true oneness. That is also explained very well in the Codex d'Elohim through the 13 fundamental principles of the universe. From the moment you become fully aware of this truth, you allow things to be what they really are. Naturally, your body then becomes divine, matching your mind. Just as you naturally grew and developed a human form without needing to control every detail consciously, you will allow your body to transform itself naturally. You have reached God, and now you let nature do its work. Your body transmutes moment by moment until it fully reaches that ideal. Thus, the acts of flying, walking on water, crossing flames, or regenerating your cells will come about naturally, just as walking came naturally to you once upon a time. At some point, you will know how to fly or even transport your body instantly from one place to another, because just as the onion attracts the substance it needs for its ideal, so do you attract the substance you need to manifest your divinity. And let me remind you that this ideal is already achieved. If you have read books like The Kabbalion or Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East by Baird T. Spalding, I strongly recommend Le Codex d'Elohim. It's a bit like the logical sequel to those works, a written presentation of absolute truth. It will definitely shed light on what you have always sensed. I will leave a link in the description. In 1382, the famous alchemist Nicolas Flamel supposedly accomplished one of the most mythical quests in history, the discovery of the Philosopher's Stone. This legendary stone is said to have the power to transmute any metal into gold, but above all, to cure all diseases and grant immortality to the one who possesses it. It is from this quest that the famous legend of turning lead into gold arose. But is it truly just a legend or a truth carefully hidden through the ages? Well, know that it is scientifically possible, and today quantum physics proves it. If this seems unbelievable, listen carefully. Thanks to recent advances, we now know that everything in the universe is made of a single and identical substance. What we call matter, whether gold, lead, your own body, or even light, differs only by its vibratory frequency. In other words, everything is the same thing, only the frequency changes. And that meaning is enormous. If we could alter the vibration of an object at will, we could turn any metal into gold. We could also make gold appear instantly, simply by restructuring the atmosphere. But that's not all. It would also mean that we could modify the very structure of our body, rendering it immortal and unchanging by merely adjusting its vibrational state. If all that sounds complex, stick around until the end of this video, because we will explain everything in detail, even if you've never studied alchemy or quantum physics. I promise that by the end of this video, everything will be clear. And above all, be prepared, because in upcoming videos, we are going to experiment in real life with the transmutation of metals and show you everything on video. So subscribe now and hit that thumbs up button, because we're going to live out this quest together. Let us begin by clarifying what the Philosopher's Stone is. Where does this legend come from? And why have metaphysicians and scientists alike regarded it for centuries as the universe's great work? According to ancient texts, the first mentions of the Philosopher's Stone go back to antiquity. Greek, Egyptian, and Arab alchemists sought a legendary substance called the Philosopher's Stone, which, due to its alchemical composition, could turn any metal into pure gold, grant immortality by renewing one's cells, and much more. To them, this mythical substance was viewed as the ultimate goal, the key to surpassing all human limitations, endless wealth by transmuting metals into gold, the end of disease and death by achieving immortality, and so forth. Thus, it was seen as the absolute great work, an infinite power capable of delivering humanity from all its constraints. This legend took on even greater importance when the famous alchemist Nicolas Flamel reportedly discovered the Philosopher's Stone, according to tradition, transmuting metals into gold, attaining immortality, and living in abundance, after deciphering a mysterious alchemical book. Centuries later, another man named Paracelsus, a renowned alchemist and physician of the 16th century, claimed that the Philosopher's Stone was far more than a mere secret of transmutation. For him, it represented the universal substance, able to cure all diseases, grant eternal life, and reveal the hidden secrets of the universe. Hence, from antiquity to the present day, the Philosopher's Stone has remained at the heart of the greatest alchemical quests, seen as the greatest mystery of all time, the ultimate secret reserved for those who manage to decipher its laws. So does this stone, or this universal substance, truly exist? And if so, did anyone actually find it, as suggested by the legend of Nicolas Flamel? And if all that is real, why doesn't the whole world know about it? We will answer all these questions, but be warned. The Philosopher's Stone absolutely exists, though not in the way you might imagine. The biggest error passed down through the legends lay in the mindset of duality. The mistaken belief that the Philosopher's Stone was a physical stone, an external quest, an object you might locate somewhere. However, the true process begins silently, at the core of your own being. To grasp all this, we must move on to a strictly scientific explanation of the first step, understanding reality itself. So we must answer a fundamental question: what is reality, and how does matter itself come into being? First, it is vital to know, and you likely already do if you have an interest in alchemy or have read books like The Kabbalion or the Codex d'Elohim, that all is spirit, the universe is mental. Put in purely scientific terms, we now have proof that everything is spirit, i.e., that the primordial substance of the universe is spiritual. This is a key point that many physicists, like Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and Max Planck, have explained via the uncertainty principle, the wave-particle duality, and several other demonstrations. They prove that everything is spiritual and that this primary substance can take a crystallized form, which we call matter, or a subtle, invisible form, purely energetic. Thus, we see that mind is the original substance of reality, from which the visible world emerges. From a scientific perspective, physicists explain that mind, through the process of consciousness, perceives possibilities within itself, and once structured by its intention, those possibilities assume a visible form. To illustrate, when you perceive a possibility in your mind, say the possibility of being perfect, that possibility already exists. Otherwise, you could not conceive it. Then mind, like a seed, implants this idea within itself and nurtures it until it crystallizes and takes a visible shape in perceivable reality. This is what we call manifestation. In essence, the only distinction between matter and pure energy is vibrational degree. Whether you realize it or not, you do this every day. Therefore, we now understand that there is only one mind, one being. All forms of living expression, human, animal, plant, or mineral, are simply different expressions of that one being, in the same way that a tree can grow infinitely many branches while remaining the same tree. Hence, everything in the universe is one single thing, one mind. You thus realize that this mind is unity, i.e., the all, the consciousness of the all. Consequently, you are that mind too. This means the mind is the original substance that can move your body and shape your environment. It is the one mind, the universal creator, otherwise known as God. God is the perpetual principle that sustains the universe as a unified whole. He is the totality of all visible and invisible things filling infinite space. God can be described as a state of consciousness, and every living creature is God. Unity already exists as a fact. Now we must become aware of it. Consciousness is simply the moment when man realizes that he is the all. The moment man realizes he is God. This state of consciousness can be expressed by the experience of absolute love, which is simply the recognition of oneness in reality. It is when one confidently proclaims, "I am God." At this juncture, you may ask, what does this have to do with the philosopher's stone and immortality you are about to see? Actually, turning metals into gold or achieving immortality or cellular regeneration were merely effects produced by a cause. Let me explain. If you have read the Kabbalion, you know that every cause has its effect, and that what people call luck or chance is merely the consequence of something created in the mind. For as you understand, all is spirit and the universe is mental. Hence, you see that there had to be a cause to engender that effect. And so what was that cause? Well, the cause is mental transmutation. The Kabbalion and the Codex d'Elohim also teach this. The real alchemical transmutation is a mental art. That means man's mind had first to recognize its unity with the all, like an individual consciousness that fuses with the universal consciousness until there is only one left. In reality, unity has always been present, but it is man who must recognize it. He does so by firmly declaring, "I am God." That is the moment when the Creator realizes that he is one with his creation. And this mental transmutation from man to God-man is what causes reality itself to be transcended to the same degree. That is where the genuine alchemical transmutation occurred. Man, initially like raw matter, shaped himself until he mastered himself by his own law, God. He shaped the philosopher's stone, which is the perfection of mind unity. That is when man achieves his ultimate state of consciousness, which is God. At that moment, by the mind, man has learned to master the universal substance by recognizing that he is one with it. To better grasp this, let us explain alchemically what happens from a scientific angle once this mental transmutation occurs. As the ancient Egyptians said, what is above is like what is below. That means everything is made of the same energy. So, a spiritual transmutation transmutes everything to that same state, be it the cells of your body or even entire planets, because everything is one. It is all mind. The mind is unity. Thus, by transmuting mind, we transmute everything from top to bottom into unity, a universal transmutation. That is what allows the individual who accomplishes this transmutation to transmute all the cells of his body to the same state. Since the mind has recognized that it is God, immutable, perpetual, and eternal in unity with the all, it becomes unified with everything. At the cellular level, this means the cells of the body become of the same substance as all that exists in the universe. This state of consciousness leads the mind's will to act not only on its own body, but on its environment as well. Hence, the mind, in recognizing its omniscience and knowing it fills infinite space, becomes directly master of the universal substance. By this mastery of mind, through principle, man can bring the visible into the invisible instantly. Being the master of the universal substance, he can rearrange the vibration of all things at will. That is why lead can be transmuted into gold simply by rearranging its atoms, i.e., changing its vibrational structure. Moreover, symbolically, we understand that lead is an image of man and gold an image of God. In reality, the transmutation of lead into gold is just the consequence of the transmutation of man into God. The ultimate vibration, the one that bridges the visible and the invisible, is the word spoken through speech. It is the mind speaking, and this vibration carried by the word is what reorganizes the visible. We see this phenomenon in concrete experiments such as those of Dr. Masaru Emoto, where water exposed to words of love, then placed in a freezer, formed balanced, harmonious crystals. Similar results appear in the field of cymatics, where researchers such as Ernst Chladni exposed metal plates sprinkled with fine sand to various sound vibrations. As soon as the sound was emitted, the sand spontaneously rearranged itself into perfectly harmonious shapes. Hence, sound, intention, and vibration instantly alter the atomic structure of things. So, given that a few words of love can transform the atomic structure of water crystals or sand, imagine what would happen if a human being, pronouncing the correct word, stood in front of molten lead. Lead is already very close, atomically speaking, to the structure of gold. Therefore, through the correct word, molten lead exposed to the perfect vibration could rearrange itself into gold. Just like water crystallizes into harmonious forms after freezing. This is the very experiment we will conduct in a future video, using a melting furnace and the relevant knowledge to set out on the quest to transmute lead into gold. Who knows? Maybe the transmutation of lead into gold, or even the instantaneous materialization of anything from the universal substance, will one day be as obvious as flipping a switch to turn on the light. After all, what seemed impossible yesterday is the norm today. In 1905, Albert Einstein rocked the world with his special theory of relativity. It explains that matter can transform into energy, just as solid water can become liquid or even vapor. So, matter and energy are the same in nature. Everyone knows this part. But what many ignore is what comes next, and that's where things get interesting. Albert Einstein demonstrated that traveling in time as we imagine it is impossible. Why? According to the theory, to travel in time, we would have to exceed the speed of light. By going faster than light, it is hypothesized that matter could go backward or forward in time. But there is a problem. Matter and light are one and the same. When an object reaches the speed of light, there is no more solid matter. It becomes pure light. At that level, the distinction disappears entirely. That proves something simple but fundamental. We cannot travel in time because time itself is an illusion. Past, present, and future are perceptions generated by the human mind, whereas in reality, everything exists simultaneously. I can already see the question forming. If time is an illusion, how can we explain super-fast travel or teleportation? This is where we dive into the heart of the matter. You will see that it is possible to move at infinite speed, but not with spaceships or complex technologies. What you need is already in you, right at hand. Stay until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover will literally upend your understanding of reality. And if this vision of the world resonates with you, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. It is thanks to your support that this knowledge can keep spreading, and I sincerely thank you. What this means is that mass and energy are essentially two extremes of the same thing. Imagine hot and cold, two different perceptions of temperature, yet linked to the same phenomenon. Likewise, matter and energy are unified in what we might call the invisible framework of reality. So in concrete terms, matter is not that solid, fixed block our senses lead us to believe. It is slowed down energy, as though light itself were condensed and held within this eternal present moment by an all-knowing force, like water that has become ice. Its essence doesn't change, only its state. Light is everywhere, all-knowing. When it slows, it takes the form we call matter. Physicists such as Henri Poincaré were already talking at the beginning of the 1900s about the deformation of space-time, but they had not fully integrated that space-time itself is only an illusion perceived by the mind. There is no genuine deformation because time does not exist. Once we remove matter, for instance by nuclear explosion, what we observe isn't destruction, but a conversion of matter into light, into pure energy. Matter never really disappears, it simply returns to what it has always been. Here we find the famous words of Lavoisier: nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. What we call destruction is just an illusion. Reality is simply that forms change and transform, but never vanish. Hence the equation E mx c2 E mx c2 is much more than a line in a physics textbook. It reveals the absolute truth. Everything is energy, and that energy is infinite. Only the eternal present moment exists. Past and future are simply mind projections, while in reality, everything is contained in the here and now. When I say destruction does not exist, many ask, what about people dying or nuclear bombs wiping out entire cities? Doesn't that count as destruction? Let's clear that up, because the reality is different than what you might think at first glance. Indeed, a nuclear explosion can look terrifying, obliterating everything in its path. But that's only the appearance. What our eyes see and what our senses tell us is often incomplete. In reality, matter never disappears. it is transformed. Let's see how a nuclear bomb works. Take the example of nuclear fission, used by classic atomic bombs. Fission occurs when a neutron hits the nucleus of a heavy atom, such as uranium-235 or plutonium-239. The collision splits the nucleus into smaller fragments. But that's not all. This fragmentation also releases extra neutrons and a huge amount of energy in the form of heat and light. Why is there so much energy? When the nucleus splits, a tiny fraction of the original mass converts into pure energy. The freed neutrons continue striking other nearby nuclei, triggering a chain reaction. Each time a nucleus splits, energy is released, manifested as heat, light, and a destructive blast. Now consider fusion used in hydrogen bombs. Unlike fission, which splits atoms, fusion involves merging two light nuclei, often hydrogen nuclei, to form a heavier one, often helium. This process occurs naturally in stars, including our sun. For fusion to happen, you need extreme heat and pressure like that found at a star's core. When the nuclei fuse, a tiny portion of their mass is also converted to energy. Again, because of E mx C2, that energy is enormous. Fusion produces even more energy per unit mass than fission, which is why hydrogen bombs are much more destructive than classic atomic bombs. But so what is really happening during an explosion? Initially, we might think matter is annihilated or that everything vanishes. But that's not actually the case. What we perceive as destruction is really a transformation of matter into energy. When fission or fusion occurs, the matter, light in crystallized form, is freed. Atoms once organized in a solid form are torn apart, and their energy is released as light, heat, and electromagnetic waves. It's basically the same phenomenon as ice melting into water and evaporating into steam. The ice does not vanish, it simply changes form. Likewise, in a nuclear explosion, matter does not disappear. It reverts to its fundamental state, energy, which can then be recrystallized into another form under different conditions and intentions. That is precisely what Lavoisier meant by, nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. Reality is just an unending dance between light and matter, between energy and form. Annihilation does not exist because everything is made of the same substance, and that substance never vanishes. In summary, fission and fusion do not destroy anything. They simply transform matter into energy, into light. Like water that transitions from ice to vapor, matter reverts to pure energy. Nothing is lost, it is always there. Now let us talk about true power and leave behind these childish games with nuclear or hydrogen bombs. Recall from the beginning of the video that matter is crystallized energy, held in the eternal present by an omniscient, invisible force. But what is this force? Here is where science ends and masterful understanding begins. Everything is spirit. Matter is only energy condensed by the conscious intention of mind. Nuclear energy may appear colossal, but it remains limited by the laws of physics. Mind, on the other hand, is the very source of energy and is not subject to the laws it has itself created. It can transform energy at will effortlessly. Hence, a master with true understanding, knowing this fundamental truth, creates reality directly. He does not need to manipulate existing structures or break atoms to free energy. He simply shapes possibilities directly from the mind thanks to his self-mastery. Indeed, atoms are not solid objects, but vibrational fields held together by consciousness. A master, being mind itself and conscious of his omniscience, is everywhere, in everything, and sees the real nature of reality. He is free from illusory limitations like time, separation, or need. And of course, free from the greatest illusion of all, death. The human body, too, is merely a vehicle shaped and sustained by mind. What we call the material body is really a hypnotic construct. Once the master raises his mind, he elevates each atom of his body to the same level of perfection. Where fission or fusion can only rearrange existing particles, the master is the architect of the entire reality. When a master recognizes absolute oneness of reality through love, what we call God, he becomes aware that he is both observer and source of everything. As a result, when he wishes to travel, he does not move his body per se. He changes his mind's vibration to be where he wants to be. Since the body is a projection of the mind, it rematerializes instantly in accord with his intention. This understanding enables the master to dematerialize and rematerialize his body at will. As the Codex d'Elohim says, the day you think not, the body transposes. Turning water into wine, for example, is nothing but rearranging the molecular structure of water. But why bother turning water into wine if you want wine? The master manifests wine directly, whereas science transforms. The master creates. Therefore, fission and fusion show that simply rearranging particles can release massive energy, yet that energy is limited by the laws of physics, while mind, as the source of these laws, is limitless. A master is aware that he is not bound by the restrictions our senses observe. He can trigger transformations at will. No need to break atoms or cause physical reactions. He already is the energy, the light, and the unified consciousness. The power of mind far exceeds that of a nuclear bomb. Where the bomb destroys, the mind creates. Where science sees limits, the mind sees infinity. For those who want to delve even deeper into these truths and fully understand them, I have placed exclusive scientific documents at your disposal, available for free on my École Entrepreneur Motive. You'll also find there a mindset leadership program specifically designed for those who feel they need a clear, detailed guide. It is not just a series of videos, but a genuine form of support, a process that elevates you to mastery. However, please understand that the course is not magic. It is there to illuminate your path, but the true master already lies within you. Links are in the description. In 1935, a scientific experiment forever shook the world. You may already have heard of it. It is called Schrödinger's cat paradox, conducted by physicist Erwin Schrödinger. This experiment shows that life and death are one and the same thing. More precisely, deeper research reveals that the entire universe is contained in the mind, and that what we call reality is actually shaped in its entirety by the paradigm the mind adopts. Put very simply, the mental construction of an individual determines their reality, period. Thus, if you are young one day, you can be so for eternity. If that seems crazy to you, know that you're not at the end of your surprises, for this is only the beginning of the explanation. What you will discover in this video is not only genuine and purely scientific, but will change your life forever. I saw that 76% of you are not subscribed. I would be extremely grateful if you helped raise the number of subscribers and likes so I can continue making even deeper videos. Thank you. Let's start. What is Schrödinger's cat experiment? It's a thought experiment by Erwin Schrödinger in 1935 aimed at explaining quantum physics on a human scale. But before diving into that, let's recall what quantum physics says about reality. Over the centuries, many physicists, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, have shown through countless interpretations, including the Copenhagen interpretation, that everything in the universe is made of energy. Over time, they observed that the human mind plays a role in how these subatomic particles behave on the quantum scale. Eventually, we now know that what is below is like what is above, and vice versa, a teaching engraved for centuries on the Emerald Tablet. In short, science thus confirms that what happens at the subatomic scale also happens on the human scale. This means that the human mind directly influences reality. That is when Schrödinger's cat experiment comes into play, because Erwin wanted to find a way to illustrate it at our scale. In line with the quantum principle, he imagines a cat locked in a box with a poison that's released by a quantum process. As long as the box remains closed, we do not know if the process triggered the mechanism or not. Hence, the cat is considered both alive and dead simultaneously. Of course, once we open the box, the cat is either dead or alive. But the key question is this: it is only at the moment of observation that the probability, dead or alive, collapses into one outcome. So a major question troubled everyone. How can the cat be dead and alive at the same time? And above all, what is the factor that fixes that probability at the moment we open the box? This is exactly where we go much further in the explanation to understand how to remain always alive. You'll see, this is not a matter of chance because chance does not exist. In real life, everything is one and the same thing, meaning the entire universe, including your body, your brain, and the environment around you, is made of one single substance, which is spirit. This reality can be stated in the following phrase: the all is mind, the universe is mental. A quote from the Kabbalion and from the Codex d'Elohim, two books you should read. Here we see that, in fact, the mind does not merely influence reality. It does not need to travel. Mind is omniscient, everywhere, in everything. Mind is the paradigm you hold, i.e., the entirety of your mental framework, everything you have so far taken to be true, and reality is therefore mind. Within that mind, humanity has the capacity for memory. Via thought, it can review images from within mind. This is where a long-standing confusion arose. Many asked, if mind creates reality, then why, if I close my eyes and say I'm young, am I still old when I open my eyes? This question aptly illustrates the difference between mind and mere thought. Saying I am young once, without believing it, is just projecting a thought with no conviction. Hence, it has no effect on reality. That is why nothing changes when you open your eyes. When we talk about mind, we mean attaining a conscious state of deep conviction, first projecting the idea of youth into your soul, then sustaining it in your thoughts until it matures and fully manifests in perceptible reality. To picture this, think of a seed. Every idea is a seed. For instance, if you wish to be young forever, you begin by becoming aware of that possibility, eternal youth. Then you plant that idea in your soul with love, because you want it. You maintain it in your thoughts until it eliminates any lingering belief in mortality. It's like planting a seed in the earth and watering it until it grows into a majestic tree. Another metaphor, think of the caterpillar. It envisions the ideal of flying, enters its chrysalis, undergoes metamorphosis, and emerges with a new body and wings for flight. You see, all physical transformation begins with a mental transmutation, for the reality we perceive is but the consequence of mind. Cause and effect are one. Now, the key point to remember is that whether we like it or not, death does not exist. To grasp this truth, let's continue a bit further. Back when mind was still getting to know itself, humans imagined death, but it never reflected in absolute reality. For mind is, simply put, as Erwin Schrödinger said, the present is the only thing that has no end. Over time, humanity invented concepts such as clocks and watches and constructed the idea of time as a way to navigate reality. But time was never an absolute truth. In other words, humans imposed a mental structure based on time onto reality, yet that structure never altered the true nature of reality, which remains eternal. Thus, the only thing that truly exists is the eternal present moment. As soon as a person becomes aware of this, they already transcend the illusion of space-time. They realize that life functions in cycles within that eternal present. At this point, scientists like Alexis Carrel have discovered by studying human body cells that the mother cell already knows this truth. In other words, cells that make up the human body are naturally eternal. So the human body is already programmed to remain eternally young. Then many wonder, if our body is supposed to be eternal, why do we age? Why do some apparently die, leaving behind lifeless bodies? Here is Carrel's answer. A mind that idolizes death lowers the vibration of its cells so much that it forces the body to become inert, what people call death, though in reality it is just the temporary animation of the body. Others have asked, so where do people go who abandon their bodies? That leads us to an essential point. What is there afterward if one makes the mistake of dying? First, note that the word dying is an illusion. The only thing mind can do is temporarily abandon its body. But how does a person who does that experience it? Normally, we are aware of our body, sense its presence and position in space, move it to eat, etc. But for those who, in old age, unconsciously project themselves into death, here is what happens. They reach a stage where they feel their body is exhausted, drained of energy. They feel an urge to let go, to be free. Then comes the moment when mind definitively leaves this reality. Its face, its name, its experiences, everything it took to be real. At that moment, mind lets go of the body entirely. Suddenly, in letting go of the physical reality, mind realizes it is not leaving, but instead encompassing everything. Mind does not leave the body. It releases its image and becomes the one and only spirit, God. That is the sense of unity. From that instant onward, mind realizes it is still there, still conscious, and in fact, all is well. Only God is. Indeed, the novel Elohim au Royaume des Merveilles explains in detail what that is like for someone going through it. Knowing this, one might ask, why wait to die to realize it? Let's do it consciously right now. Precisely so. Mind then becomes aware that it is one with the all by focusing on its environment through love, because love is unity, the energy of unity. That state of consciousness we call God. The mind then melts back into itself, which it communicates to the body. To visualize it, close your eyes and imagine you fill all of infinite space, bathed in total love. That is the sense of oneness. From this state of consciousness, one sees that there is no multiplicity of selves. There is only one. This ultimate state of consciousness is what we call God, or the sum of all substance, all life, everything. It is the total of the visible and the invisible that saturates infinite space. We also call it the true resurrection, nothing but the natural regeneration of cells. Many species in nature already do this, like the jellyfish Turritopsis dohrnii, capable of regenerating indefinitely. If you too intend to remain eternal like the Turritopsis dohrnii, then smash that like button. Some might then ask, if our body regenerates endlessly, what's to stop an accident? But remember, chance does not exist. The environment which appears external is actually also you, since all is mind. Put simply, if you maintain a constant state of love, you create only harmonious situations forever. If you want to know more about all this, I invite you to read the novel Elohim au Royaume des Merveilles, which recounts through the story of a man named Thomas how to reach this ultimate state of consciousness in our modern era. Take advantage of it because the novel is free on Kindle for a few days only. Otherwise, you can find it on Amazon in paperback and Kindle format, as well as an Audible version on Spotify via the links in the description. And feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out. Many new and exclusive videos are coming very soon. See you right away in another video.